Sometimes, life surprises you with the most unexpected teachers. The kind who walk into your world unannounced, tap you on the shoulder, and change everything. On my first day of college, I met one such person, an 87-year-old named Rose, who turned an ordinary semester into an extraordinary journey. This is her story and the lesson she left behind. Hi everyone, welcome to Life Flow, where every story brings a new perspective. Let's get started. The first day of college is always a mix of nerves and excitement. As I scanned the classroom, my professor issued the usual challenge. Find someone you don't know and introduce yourself. Reluctantly, I got up, trying to figure out who to approach when I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I found myself face to face with the last person I expected to see in a college class. She was tiny, barely over 5 feet, with a cascade of soft white hair framing a face lined with years of wisdom. But what struck me most was her smile, bright, mischievous, and infectious. It was the kind of smile that could convince you to climb Mount Everest on a whim. "Hi, handsome," she said, her voice warm and crackling with energy. "I'm Rose. I'm 87 years old. Can I give you a hug?" I laughed, surprised but utterly charmed. "Of course," I replied. She pulled me into an embrace that was somehow both gentle and strong. "What brings you to college at such a distinguished age?" I asked, my curiosity already piqued. Without missing a beat, she winked. "I'm here to meet a rich husband, get married, and have a few kids." I couldn't help but laugh. "No, really?" Her smile softened, but her eyes twinkled with determination. "I've always dreamed of getting a college education, and life finally gave me the chance." From that moment, Rose became a part of my life. We walked out of class together, and before I knew it, we were sitting in the student union, sharing a milkshake like old friends. She told me stories from a lifetime that seemed both impossibly distant and vividly present. Tales of love, loss, resilience, and hope. She called herself a time machine, a vessel of stories and lessons that spanned nearly 9 decades. "Stick with me," she said, raising her milkshake cup like a toast, "and you might just learn a thing or two." Over the next few weeks, Rose became a campus sensation. Her infectious energy and quick wit made her an instant favorite among students and faculty alike. She joined clubs, attended football games, and even participated in a karaoke night where she brought the house down with a surprisingly soulful rendition of Respect by Aretha Franklin. But her presence wasn't just entertaining, it was inspiring. Students, some battling homesickness and others struggling under the weight of academic pressure, found comfort in her. She had a way of cutting through the noise of youth and showing people what truly mattered. "I've seen war, lost loved ones, and faced more challenges than I can count," she said one afternoon as we sat beneath a massive oak tree on campus. "But do you know what got me through it all?" "What?" I asked, leaning in. "Chocolate," she replied with a straight face before bursting into laughter. "No, but seriously, laughter. Life will throw you into the mud, kid. The trick is to laugh while you're in it. It doesn't make the mud disappear, but it sure makes it easier to wash off." As the semester progressed, Rose's legend only grew. When the student council decided to invite her to speak at the annual football banquet, no one was surprised. Everyone wanted to hear what she had to say. The night of the banquet, Rose arrived in a sparkling gown, her silver hair pinned up with a glimmering clip. She was the picture of elegance and a touch of whimsy. As she approached the podium, a hush fell over the room. She carried a small stack of note cards, which she clutched nervously. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "It's an honor to stand here tonight." But then, in a moment that seemed straight out of a sitcom, she accidentally dropped her cards. They scattered across the floor like autumn leaves. There was a collective gasp, but Rose didn't miss a beat. She leaned into the microphone, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Well, there goes my speech," she said, sighing dramatically. "Guess I'll just have to wing it. But first, let me just say, I gave up beer for Lent, and this whiskey is not helping." The room erupted into laughter. And with that, Rose launched into one of the most memorable speeches I've ever heard. "We don't stop playing because we grow old," she said, her voice gaining strength with every word. "We grow old because we stop playing." Life is a game, and the only way to win is to keep moving, keep dreaming, and keep laughing. She shared her 4 secrets to happiness and success: laughter, dreams, growth, and regret-free living. The elderly don't regret what they've done, she said. We regret what we didn't do. So stop waiting. Start doing. As she spoke, I looked around the room. Faces young and old were transfixed. Some were smiling, others wiping away tears. Rose wasn't just delivering a speech. She was reminding us all what it meant to truly live. And then, to everyone's surprise, she ended by singing the Rose. Her voice, though shaky, was filled with such raw emotion that it silenced the room. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. After her speech at the football banquet, Rose's popularity soared to new heights. She was invited to participate in more events, sit in on guest lectures, and even gave a TED Talk-like presentation organized by the student body. It seemed everyone on campus wanted a piece of her wisdom, her humor, or simply her time. But Rose, ever the humble soul, remained grounded. I'm just an old lady trying to keep up with you young folks, she'd say with a grin. And yet, her presence carried an unmistakable gravity, like she was a walking reminder of how fleeting yet beautiful life could be. Our friendship deepened in those months. Rose and I would often meet after class, our conversations ranging from lighthearted banter about campus gossip to deeply personal reflections on life. She spoke of her late husband, whom she described as her greatest love and her biggest pain. He was everything to me, she said one afternoon as we sat on the campus lawn, watching students toss a frisbee back and forth. When he passed, I felt like half of me went with him. But do you know what I realized? What? I asked, bracing for one of her pearls of wisdom. That I still had the other half, she said, smiling softly. And that half? It's more than enough to keep going. Rose had a way of turning even her most painful experiences into lessons of resilience. She often spoke about how she regretted not pursuing a college education earlier, but quickly dismissed the regret with her characteristic optimism. If I'd gone to college earlier, she said, I wouldn't have met all of you now. Timing, my boy, it's a funny thing. As the semester wound down, so did Rose. She was still full of life, still cracking jokes and inspiring everyone around her. But there was a noticeable frailty to her movements, a slight hesitation in her once confident stride. One day, she skipped class, something she'd never done before. Worried I want to check on her, I found her sitting in her tiny apartment, surrounded by photo albums and old keepsakes. She was wearing her favorite cardigan, the one with the small, embroidered roses. Don't look so concerned, she said, her voice teasing but gentle. I just needed a day to remember. To remember what? I asked, sitting across from her. To remember that I've lived, she said simply. Sometimes, when you're busy chasing new dreams, it's good to sit with the old ones for a while. That day, she told me stories she'd never shared before, about her childhood, her struggles during the Great Depression, and the adventures she'd had traveling the world. She spoke with a nostalgia that was both joyful and tinged with sorrow. I'm not afraid of dying, she admitted, her voice steady. I'm just afraid of leaving things unsaid. So, let me say this. Thank you for letting an old lady like me feel young again. I didn't know how to respond. I just sat there, letting her words sink in. Rose's dream of earning her college degree came true that spring. At the graduation ceremony, she walked across the stage with her head held high, the entire auditorium erupting in applause. She was the last graduate to be called, and as she accepted her diploma, she turned to face the crowd. Now, don't think this is the end for me, she said into the microphone, grinning. I've got plans to start my next adventure. Maybe skydiving. Any takers? The audience roared with laughter and cheers. Rose was, as always, the star of the show. The week after graduation, I received a call from Rose. She wanted to meet for one last milkshake at the student union. As I walked in, I saw her sitting in our usual booth, her rosy cardigan draped over her shoulders and that signature twinkle in her eyes. You look like you've seen a ghost, she teased as I sat down. Don't worry, kid. I'm not checking out just yet. I laughed, relieved. You scared me, Rose. What's this about? She pushed a chocolate milkshake toward me, grinning. It's about the future. Yours, mine, and everyone else's. You see, graduation isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning. And I wanted to make sure you knew that before you got too serious about life. For the next hour, we talked and laughed as we always did. Rose told me about her plans. She was going to write a memoir, start volunteering at a literacy program, and maybe even take a few art classes. I've still got plenty of pages to fill in this story of mine, she said, raising her glass. When it was time to leave, she hugged me tightly. Don't forget what I taught you, kid. Life is short, but it's wide. Make the most of it. True to her word, Rose didn't slow down after graduation. She became a fixture at the local community center, teaching seniors how to use smartphones and sending out weekly Rose's Wisdom emails to her ever-growing fan base. Her first message read, "Dear friends, don't let your age, young or old, become a barrier to what you want. Life is about breaking down barriers, not building them. P.S. Eat dessert first. Always. Yours truly, Rose." She started working on her memoir, which she titled The Time Machine Chronicles. With every chapter, she infused her wit, wisdom, and humor. "It's not just my story," she told me one day when I visited her. "It's a love letter to life itself." And the adventures didn't stop there. That summer, she finally crossed an item off her bucket list, skydiving. A local news channel even covered the event, dubbing her the fearless flyer. As she floated down to earth, her laugh could be heard through the clouds. "Now that's living," she said when she landed, her face flushed with exhilaration. Rose's story didn't end with her graduation, her adventures, or even her eventual passing years later. It continued through the countless lives she touched. Her memoir became a bestseller. Her art inspired new generations, and her scholarship grew into a foundation that supported dreamers of all ages. For me, Rose remains a guiding light. Whenever I find myself at a crossroads, I think of her voice, full of humor and wisdom, reminding me to laugh, to dream, and to never stop playing. Her favorite quote, engraved on a plaque in the student union, says it all. "Growing older is mandatory. Growing up is optional." And every time I see it, I can't help but smile, because I know somewhere out there, Rose is laughing, dancing, and painting her way through the universe. Rose's wisdom lives on, reminding us all, growing older is inevitable, but growing up is a choice. Share this story and carry her message forward. Dream big, live wide, and never stop playing.